Hello all, this is Dr. Gonzalez again. I just wanted to give you a brief lesson or tutorial on our class or week 2 assignment on the role of assessment in teaching. Okay, and as you know, we can access this assignment under week 2 right here, the role of assessment activity chapter 1, and I already have it downloaded here on my computer. So let's just take a quick look at this, and I'm going to give you some pointers on completing this assignment. So again, the purpose of this assignment is to help you gain an understanding of the different types of assessment and the different purposes of assessment, why, what we do with that information once we collect it. Okay, and if possible, you can do this in a group if you can handle that, or individually completing this is fine as well. Okay, so we're starting with a brainstorm, and you need to brainstorm or think about all the ways you've been assessed as yourself, or if you are a practicing teacher, how you've assessed your students. And you want to try and be very specific here for specific examples. For instance, if I type in some of the examples that I've used as a classroom teacher, okay, I had students draw, a picture. I taught young children, draw a picture on types of animals, okay, to see if they understood what an animal was. I've had students tell me the alphabet, okay, to assess if they knew the alphabet. I've had students, I've observed how students spoke to each other in order to assess their language. Okay, I've also used a test called, in the United States, this test is called DIBELS, and that monitors letter knowledge for younger children, sound knowledge of letters. Okay, that's something else I've used. Okay, when I taught older students, one type of assessment I've used with my older students, we did this project, a role play project, where they had to role play an important historical event. Okay, when I taught middle school, I've given a test. I taught social studies, so I've given a test on the American Indians. Okay. So another example. Personally, I could think of, this list could be very long. With this brainstorm list, I would say get a pretty good list. Don't take more. It depends how hard it is for you to come up with this list. But if we were continually going, I would say spend 5 to 10 minutes of continually thinking about this and typing ideas on. Obviously, I want more than 5 ideas here, but I don't need 20 ideas. I would say 10 to 15 ideas here would be sufficient. If I think of personally, as a student myself, some of the ways I've been assessed, I've written papers, I've taken a multiple choice test, I've done a presentation on different topics. What else? I've done many things as a student. I have created videos. Okay, just a few examples. So here's my brief list here of some ways that I've been assessed or ways I've assessed my students. Okay, and now we have to we have to organize this list into categories. Okay, and that's why before I wanted you to try and be very specific in this assessment list so that we can come up with broad categories. I want to think of some broad categories. So I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to see if I can come up with some broad categories. I'm thinking of videos, maybe drawing a picture, even role playing. Okay, you may, I guess we could consider those types of projects in a way. Okay, so I'm going to make that a category. So I'm going to type projects here, and underneath projects, I'm going to put those examples. So I'm going to copy. So let's say I'll call my video a project. So I'll paste that there. I'll look up here again. You know, in a way, for little kids, little children, this could be a project to draw pictures. Okay, so I would go and put everything I thought would fit under projects there. Okay, maybe another type of general category could be teacher-made tests. Teacher-made tests, and I think I have one specific example up here. I have a multiple choice test. Teachers can make those. Okay, I would put that right under here. Okay. Let's see if I have other teacher-made tests. Not on this list. Something that we use a lot as teachers that I'm sure you will have a lot of examples under here. Another broad category is observation. Observations are very powerful for allowing us to see what students know or don't know. Okay, I have one here. I have tell the alphabet. Okay. I would observe students tell me the alphabet to see what they knew. Okay. Here's an observation. I use the word observation right there in the example. Okay, and some of your examples might fit under multiple ones. For instance, draw a picture or the types of animals. So that would fit under project if I wanted to see if they could draw a type of animal, but it also could fit under observation. If I wanted to observe while they drew the animal, if I wanted to observe if they could hold their pencil correctly and whatnot, that would be an example of observation as well. And as I just looked back up on my list as well, I have another test here, a teacher-made test that I can put back down on that teacher-made test category. I missed that. Okay. And maybe another example of a general category could be some type of screening test to see if students may need more help in an area. For instance, when I taught in the primary age, we had screening tests that students would have to take prior to starting kindergarten or the first year when they were 5 years old. And it would tell the teacher if they needed a special class or if they needed extra help. And an example of one of our screening tests was this DIBELS. So I'm going to put that down here as an example. Okay, so that's just a quick tutorial of how to do number 2. And I just want to show you on Moodle where you can get some more help. I know I have this. Please look only, this is under week 2. Please only look at the list if you're stuck or want to see if you're on the right track for question 2. There's some other help here as well. I do not mind you looking at this. This is here to help you to make sure you know you're on the right track. So if I click here, okay, and you can see right here in this category, these are some of those categories that could go on the top, and you can see that we added some already. I had observation, I had screening tests, I had projects, teacher-made tests, but there's also some broader categories as well. Standardized tests. For instance, do your students in your country have to take a special test every year to see how schools are doing? Okay. We have oral questioning. That's just asking questions while students are working or even while you're teaching. Homework can be a category of assessment. We have what students are doing in classwork. If I put classwork back on my list, some of my other examples could fit under classwork as well, such as drawing the picture of an animal. That could fit under there as well. We have projects that I mentioned before, writing reports. That could be that paper I mentioned before, and the screening tests, the example I gave before, in terms of the DIPLS assessment that we do here in the United States. So let's go back to this page, and let me just save this so I don't lose it. And you would just continue here, filling in and putting examples underneath as well. Okay, and you might not have all these broad categories. Your list up at the top might have just dealt with projects and maybe observations. You don't need to have everything in that list that I just showed you before. It's based off of your brainstorm assessment list. Okay. Now, if we move down to the third category, what you want to put here on this list, I have standardized tests here. What you want to put here are all the words that you have here up on the top of the categories. So I would put up projects there on the top. I'll put that here. We had observations. We had teacher-made tests. Okay, so I think you're seeing the process here of what would go here. And then you want to think, okay, we have these types of assessments. Now, who uses this information? Okay. And I have the examples here. Do teachers use this information? Okay, and make decisions based off of it? Parents, school administration, the public, the students, and I have others here just for a broad category. Others might be the Ministry of Education and whatnot in Africa or in your country in Africa. I know I noticed one of our students works for the Ministry of Education for their country in Africa. So you'd have to decide who is the primary user of the data, okay, and who makes decisions based off of this information. And you can see right here, if I highlight here on this chart, it says place a check mark in the appropriate cells of the table to indicate which audience used the information. Okay? And you can put a question mark to put do these groups of people really use the information, or do they just look at the scores? So if I look here at teacher-made tests, okay, who's going to use the information? I would say teachers definitely, or hopefully would use the information on these tests to see how their instruction went, or to see if they need to make any changes in their instruction. Okay? Now, in terms of just looking, I don't know if any other groups would use that information. I would say parents, hopefully, they'd probably look at it. So I'm going to put a question mark. They might not use it. Typically, at least for in my country, for the teacher-made tests, the administration wouldn't really look at these teacher-made tests, but maybe in your country they would. The public wouldn't really look at these. Where I'm from, students would look at these tests, okay, and that's what I would do for that example. Now, again, if you're stuck on this, if we go back to Moodle here, you can see, okay, this chart, okay, and you can see my example contradicts what the text said for teacher-made tests. They think that teachers, parents, and students would use it and use this type of information. What I said teachers would definitely do something about it. Maybe parents, maybe students. Okay, that would be up almost to your opinion for what you would think. I put a question